Alright, welcome back to the flight deck. The flight management system is basically an onboard computer, and it has a multitude of functions. For one, it does a number of performance-related calculations like optimal altitude, optimal airspeed, flap speeds, and that sort of thing that help us configure the aircraft for takeoff, landing, and really everywhere in between. But it's also the place where we enter our flight plan, and therefore it is tightly integrated with the autopilot, both the lateral and vertical navigation of the aircraft. So the FMS is located right here. There's one on the left for the captain and one on the right, and they're synchronized for the co-pilot. I'm going to zoom in for a closer view here. Basically, it looks like a big graphing calculator interface-wise. There's a kind of a CRT screen and then a series of pages. And then there are keys for letters, numbers, and functions that allow you to navigate and input items into the FMS. Initially, it comes up with the Route 1 screen, and basically the only thing we have to enter here are our point of origin, which is KLAX, and our destination, which is KSFO. The flight number is DL557. And that's all for this screen. Then if I click on init ref, it takes me to the performance initialization screen. And you have the gross weight, which is the fuel plus the zero fuel weight. Gross weight is going to automatically be calculated, so I might as well get the zero fuel weight. And I don't recall exactly what that was, so I'm going to call down to ground to confirm. So I'm going to bring up the center console here, dial in the frequency, and make the call.
Service Air Load Control. It's JetSet 266. We're ready for the zero fuel weight.
JetSet 266, your passenger load is 194, and your zero fuel weight is 260.3 pounds. I'll bring the load sheet out to you now. Just give me a couple minutes, okay?
Okay, thanks.
Alright, so that was in thousands of pounds there. 260,300 pounds with, I guess you said 190 passengers on board. 10,000 in reserve. So if we go below 10,000, we'll get a warning. And we're also going to let the flight computer know our cruising altitude, flight level 310, and the cost index, which we said was 80. That's in line with our fuel calculations. If you go to the takeoff screen, it's going to be a flaps 15 takeoff, which is pretty standard. And then on the second page of the takeoff reference, we're going to enter the magnetic winds, which I believe the ATIS told us were out of 287, which is west-northwest at 10 knots. Okay? So, and I guess at this point we can take a look and see if our IRS, which is the inertial reference system, which has been seeded essentially with an initial latitude and longitude, see if that's been fully calibrated and aligned. It has been, so let me turn this down.
Excuse me, Captain, here's the load sheet for you.
Okay, so they delivered the load sheet. We'll look at that in a second. If I go back to the reference page and go to the position, we can see the latitude and longitude that the IRS has been calibrated with, and I'm going to enter in a reference airport from the database, and it looks like the latitude and longitude stored in the database pretty much matches up, so I'm going to assume that the locations are correct. And I'm going to go to the legs page, and that's where we enter in the waypoints. We do not have to enter in where we are now, which is KLAX. So we're going to enter in the intermediate and destination points, starting with the RZS VOR, which it shows us is 76 nautical miles away. That sounds about right. Then the CNO intersection, Roby, and SNS, and finally KSFO. And once I execute the flight plan, it also shows us the bearings between waypoints as well as the bearing to our initial waypoint, which is 283. And if we want to go ahead and dial that in up on the MCP, we can do so. Just like we entered in our initial altitude, we'll also bug our initial heading. And just so we can calculate our V-speeds, I'm going to go ahead and go to the departure and arrival screen and choose a takeoff runway, even though we don't know yet what our assigned runway will be. I'm going to assume 25 right, and now our V-speed should be calculated. And there are the V-speeds. By V-speeds, I mean V1, which is 124 knots, is the speed on takeoff beyond which, once we reach it, we cannot turn back and abort the takeoff. VR is the speed at which we will begin rotating, pull back on the yoke, and try and take off. Whoops. And the V2 is the safe flight speed. That's basically the initial configuration of the FMS. So let's take a break and then come back and look at this performance calculation sheet that we've just been handed by the maintenance personnel.